Good evening. Wow, response. That's great. Welcome to the December 18th meeting of the Board of Selectmen. If you'd all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I want to make an announcement that this meeting is being televised live by Chelmsford Telemedia and taped for later rebroadcast. If anybody else is audio or video recording, please let me know at this time. There's one, there's two, okay. Thank you. Okay, the first item on our agenda is a certificate of recognition for the Chelmsford Cougars Pop Warner C team. And we will read that certificate.
This certificate of recognition is hereby presented to the Chelmsford Cougars in honor of winning the New England Pop Warner C Team Championship to complete an undefeated season. Your strong work ethic and commitment to teamwork bring great credit upon yourselves, your families, and the town of Chelmsford. Awarded this 18th day of December 2017, signed by Selectmen Chairman Pat Wojcik and Selectman Laura Merrill, Ken LaFave, George Dixon, and Glenn Diggs, and signed by the town clerk, Patricia Durst, with its town seal.
Congratulations to the boys. And girls, yeah. If somebody would like to come up and tell us about your amazing season, up to the microphone.
Go up to the microphone.
Whoever's the designated speaker.
We'll let you guys go. So, I don't know if everybody's familiar with Pop Warner and how it runs, but we start at the top at just after the first of the year. The planning starts with the board of directors, and it's pretty amazing. They go all year. We take 1 month off. Season just finished. We get right back at it in January. So it starts with them. We get organized. We get our coaches. Coaches are all certified. It's a great well-run program. It's the only youth sports program that I know you have to maintain a certain grade point average, or you cannot play in youth sports, which is pretty amazing. We have on this team alone, I think it's 7 or 8 kids that qualified for All-American Scholastic National Awards. That's almost half the team. That's a 96 GPA equivalent or above. That's the top 2% out of 500,000 participants across the country, coast to coast. So that's proud of that right there. They took the field on August 1st, hot August 1st. They worked hard. Not one kid complained. We had kids there from Parker. We had kids there from McCarthy. At the C level, it's more middle school, not the elementaries. We made it clear as coaches, there is no Parker, there is no McCarthy. It's one. It's one program, it's one team, and it's about us, our town, our community. And that's where it started. They busted their humps all the way through August. We got to some scrimmages. We saw some things we liked, we saw some things we didn't like, we made some adjustments. Not one kid on this team was selfish. They went where the coaches needed them to play. They excelled at that position. Every single kid on the team, top to bottom, didn't matter. We won. We went 8-0 in the regular season. We went to the playoffs. We won 2 playoff games. We won the Eastern Mass Championship. Then we went on to win the New England Championship. We had the most points scored out of any team in the league. We had the fewest points allowed in the league. And it was just an incredible bunch of kids. And as I said, the coaches leaving that field August 1st for coaches meeting, I said, special group of kids. No one was selfish. Great program, great community, and the support from everyone. People were coming out, didn't even know about football to support us. And that's amazing. So we're looking forward to getting back at it next year. A lot of us are moving on to other sports. And that was our season. So New England champions, first time ever in Chelmsford history, which is good. 40 years. call up one more real quick.
Well, and those are pretty amazing trophies. I think you should bring those up so everybody can
You can
see
see them. Thomas Brown, Kyle Wilder, come on up with the trophies.
People at home. It's hard to tell which one's the round.
There you go.
There you go. You can rest of it. People at home can.
The Eastern Mass one is the big one, the New England one is a smaller one. People, so I do have another coach here that's been around town for a long time, and I'd like to have him say a few words. My assistant head coach and offensive coordinator, great guy, Bob Brown. On the spot.
Yeah, put me on the spot. I wasn't expecting this. I'll keep it short and sweet. I just want to say thank you to Board of Selectmen for the recognition. Kids really appreciate it. It's a big deal. And as Kevin said, we talk a lot about the community and representing the community. And this group of kids not only won the New England Championship, they take that commitment and that representation very seriously. They're great young men and young ladies. And we're very proud of them. So thank you again.
All right. Anybody else? Any of the kids
How
want to?
about the president over there? Tell them those guys what they have to say.
Yeah, it was a fun season. We all got to know each other with such a small team. We got to meet each other. We got to hang out with each other. We had fun times. Not a lot of not fun times going, undefeated. And it was a very fun season. The coaches supported us a lot. The parents, I'd like to thank all the parents that would drive us there, take us home. They committed just as much as us. So thank you.
Okay, Angela, would you like to say a few words? Not really.
Come on, Ian.
Just a few.
Just a few. I am so proud of these kids. The commitment, the coaches, and like Kevin said, it starts in January. We love the program. We love this town. And keep up the good work. Thank you.
Okay. Come up to the microphone.
I'd just like to say thank you for everybody for inviting us here and allowing us to have this opportunity. And I would like to thank the coaches and friends and family for supporting us throughout our whole season and letting us practice on McCarthy Field and letting us play the games. So I'd just like to say thank you to everyone.
Well, thank you.
Isaiah just moved up from Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He's been here for 3 months. He's a huge addition to the team. So nice to have him here. Right, guys? Yeah. That's right. He's a It's your new home.
All right. Anybody else that would like to? Oh, we have a lot of speakers on this team.
As Cole said, it was a very fun season, and these kids are like brothers and sisters to me. We all got to know each other very much. Most of us go to the same school. Always would see each other. We would stick up for each other. None of us would ever fight.
Right.
Now, I have a couple questions in general. I don't know who can answer. Will you all be on the same team next year?
No.
Would you
No.
put 'em-
So some of us will move up, some will stay at this level because of age and weight.
I see.
So I'll correct him.
Okay.
So he is correct about age and weight, but when I did the math, every kid on this team actually qualifies to move up to the next level to B level. So right now, based on what I'm seeing, all these kids here, with I think 10 missing, 9 or 10 missing, all kids do qualify to move up to the B level to stay together. And we'll have the enthusiasm in the town. The nice part about it is there's going to be some kids jumping on board, new kids. So we'll grow the numbers there. The numbers have actually gone up this year. But it's these kids are the nucleus, and 95% of them will be with us next year at B team.
If you'd like to come to the microphone and announce how you could sign up,
Oh, sure.
Maybe that would help too to your recruitment efforts. You might need to add a couple more teams.
So it's a little old-fashioned. We post everything on the website. We'll post things on Facebook. But the board of directors I think it's in March. They start promoting it after they get their game plan together in January. They start promoting it for signups for returning members in February. We send out flyers. I've gone to schools myself to try and recruit kids with flyers. And, so we'll visit the middle schools, some of the elementary schools. And March starts the signups, believe it or not. And they try and form the teams by May so we can take the field. But it's posted everywhere. We'll put signs out, those A-frame signs throughout town, on the commons and stuff like that. So, but the numbers have grown over the last couple of years, which is tremendous. Some great sponsors in Circle Health and stuff like that too. Got us a lot of new equipment, and parents hear that and they see they get new shoulder pads and new helmets for the kids, and it's parents they're happy. So with the numbers up, we're looking forward to growing it next year as well. So just keep watching the news, around town and stuff like that. It'll be posted all over the place, no doubt.
And what's the Facebook page?
So we go, Friends of Chelmsford Pop Warner? Chelmsford Pop Warner. So you can like it, and then you become a member there. And I actually think Mr. Dixon is part of that, so we can. I see him on there every once in a while, but that's we can do that, so that's good. And we can just get that around, but it's Chelmsford Pop Warner. You can just put that in there, and it'll pop right up, and we'll like you right away.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
great community, proud to be part of it, all around. All right.
Okay, thank
Any
you.
other questions?
Yeah, and if you want to, Glenn, you have a question for him?
Yeah, do you have corporate sponsors?
So we always look for sponsors. Equipment's so expensive. I mean, a good helmet today is $300, $350. So we do. We look for them. We have some good. As a matter of fact, it'd be nice to recognize if you give me 2 minutes. If you give me 2 minutes, I actually have a shirt. But I forgot. Yeah, right. This is great. So over the years, we've had Circle Health, this year's premier sponsor, and we love them, Trinity, Ambulance EMT. Great company, always there. Just a class act, great company. I mean, glad to be associated with them, supporting us. We've had Best Fitness, Chelmsford Dental Associates, KDK Foundation, Brickhouse Pizza is always a big supporter, Chelmsford Oral Surgery, Marty's Landscaping, Dick's Sporting Goods, Chelmsford Pal, Christopher's Towing has always been a big part of it every year, Chelmsford Animal Hospital, Chelmsford Wallboard and Plaster, and Veritas Performance were some of the sponsors this year. We're always looking for more, though, because you always want to keep up with the latest and greatest equipment. So it's, always want sponsorships. And we'll start writing letters in February, March to get that out, give people plenty of time. So looking forward to a lot of guys return. Companies will return, but we're always looking. We'd like to add 10 more to the back of the shirt for the program. So very, very proud. Everyone supports us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Right. So if you want to take your trophies, we don't want to hold them here and have them go missing, and also the certificate that you can share with
Okay.
with your team.
Thank you again.
Again, thank you very much for coming. And you're welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting.
They're gonna get real rowdy real soon.
Stand up, hey, stand up and say thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for inviting us here.
Thanks for going undefeated.
You're welcome. Thanks for supporting us throughout that season.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
I don't recognize it.
Okay, we have another public service announcement having to do with the deadline for the submission of citizen petition warrant articles for the spring annual town meeting on April 30th. And that deadline is January 2nd.
Tuesday, January 2nd.
Okay, and as in the past, in order to submit a citizen petition for the Springtown meeting, you need to have that in a form that you can get at the town clerk's office, right? They have that?
Yep.
You have it? You need 10 signatures of voters in the town of Chelmsford, and you can submit that before 4 p.m. on Tuesday, January 2nd, to the town manager's office. Okay, next on the agenda is the open session. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to address the board about any topic at this time, you're welcome to do that. Okay. We'll go, oh, we do have somebody, okay, sorry.
I'm Brian Latina, Precinct 4 Town Meeting Rep, and I live at 15 Jesse Road. And if you don't mind, Matthew's never addressed selectmen or any other public body. He's not able to speak, so I'd like to speak in first person for Matthew on his behalf. My name is Matthew Latina. I'm 33 years old. I've been a resident of Chelmsford for about 20 years. I can't do much by myself. I'm in a wheelchair. I go to a program that the town has supported up through 19th birthday. Actually turning 22, I switched to a program in Woburn called New Path. So the state actually provides services for people like me. I noticed that at the end of our street, 130 Turnpike Road, they built an affordable housing project several years ago. This is a form of affordable housing, is a form of public housing. And my father went and talked about, are these properties that you're about to build handicap accessible, ADA compliant? And the answer from the developer to the ZBA was, well, if they need it, we'll help them out. The property has all the living locations, all the places you put a bed, are on the second floor. So people like me can't use that public housing project. Those 6 units that are affordable can't be used by elderly or people like me. Recently, the town also built a 40B project on Mill Road. They just paved the driveway. My dad also was at several of those meetings, and the ZBA assured us that they would, in fact, at his suggestion, put the affordable housing units for the 4 handicap units on the ground floor rather than the 3rd or 4th floors. They actually reduced the size of the building to 3rd floor, and they thought that was a good idea. No one had thought of it. The developer, the engineers, the ZBA, no one had thought of it. But my dad did. That makes it easier to get out in the case of a fire. That property on Mill Road has now worked on a pretty quick pace, and they just paved the driveway. My dad had asked if that driveway was going to be handicap accessible. It's a public housing project, 40B, state required, state statute, that, by the way, overrode the town zoning. So I'm guessing it's a requirement that we do this and build a state housing project for people like me. The driveway is at about a 9 to 12% grade. We parked right outside this building. There's handicap parking in front of our building and also behind it, in this building that you're meeting in. The snow that dusted this evening made it very dangerous for my dad to get me out of the car. There's a ramp in the back of my van, and Dad almost slipped. It's treacherous out there. The handicap access to this building has a little bit of snow on it. Not a problem for most of us. Dad slipped a little. My wheels are still wet from the snow and ice. We forget about that when we're building projects or we're making the building accessible. My dad called a state rep this week because for the 12th year in a row, no snow or ice has been removed from the Route 129 bridge, from the handicap school in front of the Mill Road project. The handicap school is Lifelinks. Sidewalk in front is in town property. The sidewalk that runs around Mill Road up 129 has handicap ramps. It has a button for pushing the little light button there at my level, so I could push it if I could, but I can't. It's covered in ice and snow during the winter, every winter for the last 12 years. This would allow wheelchairs, if it was accessible, to go from the school in front of the new affordable housing project that the state required to the Dunkin' Donuts or to the Mexican restaurant or the other places that someone in that school might want to go. Back to the Mill Road project. If I was living in that if I was working in that program, or if I was a resident in and around that area, I might want to live across the street from Lifelinks on Mill Road. Can't get up that road without a vehicle. You cannot push a wheelchair like I'm sitting in here up a 9% grade. In fact, in the snow outside, you couldn't do it up a 1% grade. My dad, if he was pushing me on a 9% grade, picture Turnpike Hill. That's the grade that they've now put a sidewalk up, or haven't, or don't plan to. My dad called the building inspector a few weeks ago, and the building inspector, when asked about ADA compliance of the sidewalk that my dad asked for on that project, he said that they're asking for a variance down in Boston because the one thing they couldn't do is provide for handicap access on a sidewalk in front of an affordable housing project that the town has now allowed to be built in our town. 108 units, 4 of them for handicapped people, not accessible by a sidewalk or the grade up that facility. So my dad would like you to consider getting in a wheelchair and getting pushed or helping someone push up that ramp that they're building to that project. Further, the other projects in town that we are allowing to build in our town should provide for handicap access. They should provide for American with Disability requirements, and we should ask that question, especially at the new projects that they're putting on Turnpike Road. 4 stories. I don't think we ever heard any discussion about whether or not they would be accessible. Thank you very much. Again, my name is Matthew Latina, 15 Jesse Road. I'm a resident and I'm a non-voter, but my parents vote. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Brian and Matthew. Okay, is there anyone else that would like to address the board this evening? Okay, we'll go on to committee vacancies.
The town of Chelmsford has the following committee vacancies as of the 18th of December. 1 associate member on the Board of Appeals, 2 vacancies on the CCA Advisory Committee, 1 vacancy on the Center Village Master Plan Implementation Committee, 4 vacancies on the Civic Committee, 2 vacancies on the Community Action Program Committee, up to 21 vacancies on the Cultural Council, 2 vacancies on the Energy Conservation Committee, 3 vacancies on the Holiday Decorating Committee. The Parade Committee is welcoming all applicants. There are 5 vacancies on the Public Celebrations Committee, 1 vacancy on the Recycling Committee, 2 vacancies on the Sign Advisory Committee, 2 vacancies on the Skate Park Committee, 1 vacancy on the Tree Committee, and 1 vacancy on the Vinyl Square Strategic Action Plan Committee. If you're interested in serving on a town board committee, please apply on the town website or contact the town manager's office.
Thank you.
Do you think it would be possible through February that we ask the town clerk to add a list of the town meeting positions that are available by precinct, and we can announce them for this as well?
Well, there's always going to be 18. I mean, 6 per
No, how
precinct.
many are vacant at this time? I understand there's some.
Well,
that
there's
are
none,
vacant.
are there any vacancies right now?
I don't think there's any vacancies right now. There'll be some unexpired terms up, right? But I'm not aware of any vacancies in town meeting right now, but they
Yeah, I mean,
wouldn't.
sure, we can ask.
We can
yeah.
ask her, yeah.
Sure. Okay. Okay, next up, we have a public hearing having to do with the right of first refusal for a parcel on 160 Mill Road. This has to do with property that was rezoned at the last town meeting that we had a couple of months ago. Property that's currently owned by the Russell Mill Swim and Tennis Club, and they are proposing to sell it. They have a signed purchase and sale agreement for the property. Because it was in Chapter 61A, which is, what's that? Is that
61B,
oh.
recreational.
61B, which is recreational use. They were subject to lower taxes than they would have been if it were considered developable land. So they have to offer it to the town or an entity that we could give that right of first refusal to if we could match that offer. So since this is a public hearing, I'd ask if there's anybody in the audience that would like to address the board about this this proposed right of first refusal. Okay, seeing none, I'll ask the board, is there any discussion or any action that we'd like to take this evening?
I'd like to make a motion to maybe continue this for,
January 8th meeting?
Is
next
there a
meeting.
reason? I guess I mean, I know that the
Right, I did send it out to the Land Trust, to the Planning Board, the Conservation Commission. The problem is some of those groups have not had a opportunity to meet
Okay.
prior to tonight's meeting.
Okay.
So I think if it were to be continued to the January 8th meeting, then those groups could weigh in. So George is right here as well, and George, you know,
Well,
some did, Planning Board did.
I asked for public input.
Planning Board had, George Zaharoula is chairman of Planning Board. Planning Board had no concerns and
Oh,
had
okay.
no interest in property.
Oh, okay, all right,
Conservation has not had a chance to meet. and,
Okay.
Land Trust is meeting, I think, as well.
all right. So George, you had a motion to continue it to January 8th?
did.
Yep.
I'll second.
Okay, we have plenty of seconds. Okay. Okay, does anyone on the board have any questions or anything that they'd like to comment about this, this right of first refusal? Okay, we have a motion then and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay, we have a couple licenses this evening. We don't have any paperwork, I guess, for the auto dealer's license. I guess that was left off our previous list from the last meeting. Is that correct, Paul?
Yeah, it's a renewal. They just wasn't complete for the time for the last meeting.
Okay. So if we could have a motion for that?
Well, I'm trying to catch up
It's,
to the.
it's not, we don't have any documentation for it,
Oh.
just for this annual, this renewal.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the annual renewal of the Northeast Transmission Auto Dealer License on 123 Princeton Street.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? Do you know what type of auto dealer this is?
It's a Class 3, which is used vehicle.
Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And we have a one-day beer and wine license for St. John the Evangelist Church.
I'll make a motion to approve the one-day beer and wine license for St. John Evangelist Church on 115 Middlesex Street for December 23rd, 2017. What are the hours of operation on that?
5 p.m. to 11 p.m.
From 5 p.m. to 11 p.m.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, reports and presentations. Kitty Messer, the conservation agent, is going to talk to us about open space.
Oh, it's already on.
I just gotta minimize the screen. Give you all that.
Yeah, it's on. Good evening. My name's Katie Messer. I'm the conservation agent for the town. And I'm here tonight to present to you the draft of the Chelmsford Open Space and Recreation Plan. It's a
a 7-year update, so it was last updated in 2010. So municipalities with a current open space and recreation plan are eligible for certain grants under the state. There's specific requirements to meet when updating these plans. Certain sections such as history of the town, geological features don't need to be updated for obvious reasons. But there's sections such as demographics, goals, objectives, and the summary that need to be updated every 7 years. And basically the update will highlight the achievements since the last plan. So we formed an open space and recreation plan working group in January 2017. There's a list of the members there. And we held monthly meetings from January till this past November. We produced a public survey that ran from April to June, trying to engage the public on their thoughts on open space and recreation. And over the course of those 10 months, we edited sections of the plan and set some goals for the next 7 years. Some of the major achievements since the last plan, the Chelmsford Dog Park had opened, and that was a goal listed in the 2010 plan. Oak Hill Reservation officially opened this past year, also a goal in the past plan. Sheehan Farm was acquired for agricultural use, and the community gardens were established at Sunny Meadow, along with some other achievements. Now, this plan is 183 pages, so you're just getting little snippets of it tonight, but there's a lot more detail, which I believe you got in your packets. Some committees that were established since the last plan, the Roberts Field Advisory Committee and the Tree Committee, the Center Village Master Plan Committee, and the Vinyl Square Strategic Action Plan Committee. Some demographics, the population, there hasn't been a new census since 2010, so our number is 33,802. A steady population growth over 30 years. Based on the 2011 to 2015 American population survey, it's not a census, it's more of, I guess it's kind of a census, but based on that, we have increased some households by 3.3% in town. Single-person households are on the rise as opposed to family households, which have slightly decreased since 2010 open space plan. And we have a fairly evenly distributed population with about 1 dwelling unit per acre in town. Some development trends that I noticed during this update, we have consistent redevelopment within town as we near kind of a build-out situation. But there are 581 acres of developable land, but that's based solely on the size of the lot. It doesn't take into consideration zoning or wetlands or anything like that. That's just strictly 1 acre buildable lots. The development in town will mostly be redevelopment as we go forward. It'll be commercial and industrial, but we're starting to see a lot of residential redevelopment, people adding on to their houses, in-law apartments, going up with their house as a second floor. And then under the Affordable Housing Act, the town has to meet the 10% affordable housing rate with 40B development. These are some of the numbers of acres we have gained or either lost over the past 7 years. It's kind of broken down into 3 sections: privately owned open space, public open space and recreation land, and nonprofit open space and recreation. So the total acres of open space today is right around 3,600 acres, and about 1,200 of those acres are permanently protected or limited protection, have some kind of protection on them. So our public survey was really successful this year. We had about 813 responses compared to the 96 responses done in 2010. We had it listed on SurveyMonkey. It was in paper format at the library, the senior center, high school. So we had a really good turnout on our 10 questions that kind of asked people what they thought was needed in town or what they were satisfied with in town, which helped us form our goals for the next plan for the next 7 years. Here are some of the results. Turns out the number one value in Chelmsford is preserving wildlife habitat. Second in line was protecting drinking water, promoting high-quality schools, providing additional public recreation opportunities, and maintaining public safety. And the top three needs, year-round swimming facility, came up so many times on the survey results as a need in town, along with a recreation center for teens or similar to like a YMCA, somewhere where teens can go year-round. And then more accessible playgrounds, ADA playgrounds within town, were the top three needs within our survey. And they kind of match the statewide survey. There's a statewide comprehensive open space recreation plan survey, and ours kind of goes similar with the statewide results of swimming being the number one need within any town. Residents tend to be most displeased with the handicap accessibility in town. Overuse of conservation areas surprised me. A lot of people are saying don't allow people into them, keep them for the wildlife, don't mow, don't maintain the trails. Maintenance of existing facilities was big. Tennis courts, basketball courts, skate park, it all came up. We had, I think you have the survey results too in your packet. We had some open-ended questions where people could just write freely of what they were thinking, and I noticed it over and over again. Skate park and tennis courts need some maintenance. And then the two top used areas are the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, which isn't really a surprise. I think it's probably used the most, and then conservation reservations. So we have people saying, don't overuse them, but it's also the second most used recreation area in town. So from that, we took some goals, realizing what could be needed in town within the next 7 years. Even in the last 2010 open space plan update, the need for some kind of recreation committee or department was there. It wasn't accomplished in the past 7 years. It really is needed to be eligible for the park grant. If you're a town of 35,000 or less and you don't have a recreation department or committee, you're not eligible for park renovations and acquisition grants under the state. So the committee or the working group figured that should be our number one goal throughout this next 7 years, is to appoint some kind of open space and recreation committee to kind of take care of this next update, kind of keep track of things, do public surveys from time to time, coordinate with different town departments for maintenance, kind of give them the reins on this open space plan, and use the public survey results to develop the next plan, basically. Just another committee that can just focus solely on the open space plan and getting some things done in regards to open space and recreation. Another goal, these are very kind of vague bullet points. There's a whole goals section all charted out with who would be responsible based on how the working group felt it would be. But prioritize accessibility improvements throughout town. This is also based on the survey results of what people thought were the highest needs. Provide improved information sources regarding recreation and open spaces. People felt they didn't have places to go to find out information about what's available in town, or how to rent certain fields, or how to just use certain areas other than our town website, which has our trail maps. They're looking for something more like a hotline they could call in asking about recreation facilities. More designated land for wildlife and water preservation. The Conservation Commission has done a couple since the last plan. We have the Black Brook Reservation, Wildlife Reservation, and we have the Bobby Greenwood Wildlife Preservation. So those two areas won't have walking trails. They're just strictly for wildlife habitat. And then research potential sites for public pool and or recreation facility over the next 7 years, since that was one of the highest needs under the public survey, and then obviously maintain the existing recreation areas we have in town. So the next steps after tonight,
I've already started the top one, solicit different town departments, committees, and private entities to get their comments. This is a rough draft form. So what's going to happen is everyone's going to send me their comments, their edits, their questions, and I'll incorporate it into the plan, produce a final draft, which will be sent to the state for review and approval. They'll send it back with any comments, questions, and then we'll post that final draft to the town website. Once it's approved by the state, we can post the final plan, and then it'll be all set for the next 7 years. But it really is kind of a guideline that the town should follow to try to improve different areas in town and see where we're at compared to the statewide. And I thank you for allowing me to present tonight. And are there any questions or comments?
Any questions?
You mentioned that to get access to some grants, you need a committee, the town to have a committee,
Yes,
recreational committee.
that's correct.
What kind of monies are involved with these grants?
Like how much is available? I think it's based on your project, and
How high can they go?
I want to say I've seen around like maybe 100K for that'd be for like a renovation, but they have lower amounts for acquisition of parcels for parkland. Renovations will run a little higher.
Thank you.
Anybody else? So Paul, what's the likelihood that we could at least create a committee that would work on some of these goals?
Yeah, we could, once the plan is finalized. I mean, we've secured recreational grants, like the Varney Playground one was
Right.
the most notable one, and, you know, how we've tended to do it, like the Roberts Fields ones, in the Harmony Park one, we've tended to do site-specific committees.
Right.
If you now introduce a commission over that, you know, it make it a little stickier to try to, you know, because I think the committees that we have formed have been very responsive to an individual open space area. But we can do that. I think the important thing is to get the comments back into the report,
Yeah.
get the report certified by the state, and then move forward at that time.
Okay, I mean, right now, as far as site-specific, we only have the one, is that right?
Right now it's Roberts Field, but the Varney group is still together.
That's right,
and-
right.
And still looking to do future, and the dog park is probably another example as well. But there are committees that move forward in terms of next phases of the committee. So that's sort of how we're tackling it at this point.
Because this group was actually made up of representatives from all of those,
Right.
right? Plus a citizen
Yep.
representative. Okay, so, yeah. So maybe we can go forward and do, you
Yeah.
know, I don't know about rejuvenating a recreation department. That's probably not in the cards anytime soon, I would think, but.
Yeah, I think overall a committee just to sit down once a month and maybe conduct an annual public survey between now and the next update. Just someone who's, it's just a specific committee that can just keep track of this plan. Because I have my other part of the conservation job, and it might just get lost when certain things come up. They could keep track of land acquisition that happens at town meetings and keep it all written down. We have a pretty good running Excel spreadsheet of what we acquire with the acreage, but just a committee there to, I'd be willing to be on it too if I had to be, so.
It would be the staff resource for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think you're right. I mean, it does seem that if you, depending on what you're trying to find, I mean, if it's just, some types of recreation, you go to, I forget what it's called, that the Westland School. I mean, they do some of those programs, and, I mean, that's considered kind of the recreation
Right.
part too.
Right,
Plus, I'm sure people call you, and I'm sure people call the town manager's office and probably the town clerk's office to find out answers to where they can go for certain things. So, yeah, it would be good to have something kind of rolled into one general area. All right. Any other questions, comments for Katie? Thank you very much for the report.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have a citizen petition for a non-binding advisory question for the 2018 town election ballot. I will ask Christine Bowman to come up and talk to us. Okay. Christine? We're moving right along.
Okay, this is good. Good evening. What we have before us is a non-binding ballot question, and which is an outgrowth from the lack of information on the project for 104 Turnpike Road. Now, the location of the 104 project on Turnpike Road, and that whole area from Mill Road to Turnpike Road to the top of Billerica Road, was presented originally when the bylaw first came out to the Planning Board, Board of Selectmen, and town representatives as a transitional location from the residential neighborhoods. The multifamily housing would be transitional to then between the residential housing and commercial districts. So transitional means this: transitional is not a step function. Now, the only definition or description I found on transitional locations is in the 2010 master plan and in the 2011 housing production plan, which described the transitional location. It's meant to be a buffer zone between the residential locations and the commercial districts. And it was also described as being 4 to 6 acres, 4 to 6 units per acre. Again, as transitional, which is more than residential and less than commercial. In addition to that, also in the 2011 and in the 2017 housing production plan, it shows that 104 Turnpike Road was combined with 3 other parcels and described as 80 to 104 Turnpike Road. These 4 parcels encompass 16.1 acres. Now, in the 2011 housing production plan, that production plan was pretty comprehensive. And on the board that put that together included Board of Selectmen, Planning Board, Zoning Board of Appeals, the Conservation Commission. It had citizen representatives as well, and Affordable Housing Advisory Board, and technical advisors of the Chelmsford Housing Authority Director and the Community Development Director. So it was pretty extensive and input from a lot of different people. Now, that particular plan also incorporated the 2000, or built upon the 2005 Affordable Housing Plan and the 2010 Master Plan. So there was more description, explanation, reasoning for doing certain things and carrying out certain strategies. Now, part of the strategy with the transitional multifamily zoning was to encourage more affordable housing, specifically for low and moderate income families. And this was being done through the inclusionary housing bylaw. So that was the purpose for encouraging these multifamily transitional zones throughout town, not just in the BAOD, but throughout town was the basic strategy. Now, this, in the 2011 housing production plan, it also specifically described the 80 to 104 Turnpike Road parcels as a transitional location. So it was meant to be a fairly low density as in comparison to the project that was recently approved for that location. The pre-planned rental units for those parcels was 128 rental parcels for the 16.1 acres, which turns out to be 8 units per acre, and or 100 units for ownership, which would be 7 units per acre. So that shows that there is clear strategy for the parcel, specifically at 104 Turnpike Road at 8 acres per unit. In addition to the presentation with the text of the BAOD, which just says that multifamily is allowable from Turnpike Mill, Turnpike, and the top of Billerica Road. And the only other thing it says on there is that the inclusionary housing bylaw shall apply. So that's consistent, again, with the strategy that was outlined in 2011 Housing Production Plan. In addition to that, there was a BAOD map. Now, the BAOD map outlined the areas along Mill and Turnpike and the top of Billerica Road that was the area or is the area for multifamily housing. Now, the text at the bottom of that map says that the properties along that road is in orange. If you look at the zoning district map, let me back up a little bit. There is no legend on the BAOD map itself, just a few lines of text. But that one specifically addressed Mill, Turnpike, and the top of Billerica Roads. The zoning district map has a legend, and orange on the zoning district map is RM, standing for residential multifamily housing. So I attended all the planning meetings, the Board of Selectmen meeting, and the town representative meetings for the BAOD when it was first presented and then approved by town meeting. So the only thing that was emphasized for the multifamily housing is that it is intended as transitional between residential and commercial, again consistent with the 2011 Housing Production Plan, and that is to be a buffer zone between those two districts, and it is to provide compatibility and a blending in component with the residential neighborhoods. Now that, as a representative, looking at that and then looking at the maps, the map that was providing along with the district map, it's clear that the multifamily housing was meant to be residential multifamily housing because of the zoning map. Zoning maps are part of the bylaw. So it's not separate and not considered. It is distinct and part of the bylaw. Now, what was not stated at any of those presentations was that multifamily housing would consist of commercial district dimensional standards. Not once was that stated. So what was presented and approved from all the presentations was a transitional location, meaning something less than commercial district and something more than single-family homes. The recent project that was approved incorporates commercial dimensional standards. That is not mentioned anywhere in the BAOD. It is not mentioned anywhere in the CEIOD. It is not mentioned anywhere in the description in 2011 for multifamily housing as a description of what multifamily housing is to be. Now, the 2011 Housing Production Plan as the comprehensive document is 103 pages with additional attachments. The 2017 HPP is only 30 pages. So clearly, the comprehensive plan carries over into the 2017 Housing Production Plan. They're used together because they are descriptions. Now, even though the CEIOD and the BAOD do not mention the housing production plan at all. There is a link and relationship made within the 2011 HPP and the 2017 HPP to the CEIOD and the BAOD. So the 2011 HPP talks about implementing strategies for advancing the multifamily transitional locations throughout town. In the 2017 HPP, it takes credit for implementing the CEIOD, which was approved in 2013, and the BAOD, which was approved in 2016, for making progress along those lines, for encouraging multifamily zones, for which will automatically encourage the affordable housing. In addition to that, the 2017 Housing Production Plan states that with the CEIOD and the BAOD and the specific siting criteria used, that will help to, again, advanced multifamily housing. So there is a link between the bylaws, CEIOD and BAOD, which the CEIOD applies to projects in the BAOD, but it also makes a link to the density criteria that should be used. And for the RM district, in the siting criteria, it is 2 to 4 units under the use regulation schedule with a minimum lot size of 80,000 square feet. Now, the underlying area for the multifamily housing locations is IA, or limited industrial. But the CEIOD clearly states there will be no residential multifamily housing in the CEIOD. So it appeared, as a town representative, looking at that text, the BAOD, plus the map that showed RM District 4 Mill Turnpike and Billerica Road, that is how that was being addressed. But it wasn't. It turned out to be something different. So this gave rise to, what can we do? What can we do to tighten up these areas so that there are assurances, not only for the residents, but for the developers and for the whole town? Because zoning is about assurance. Everybody is supposed to be playing from the same game book. Everybody's supposed to know what the rules are, so that everybody plays by those rules. So this is the initiation for the ballot question, and is being presented to you. I understand that town council has written indicating that you do not have to approve. Of course you don't have to approve, but this is a pathway that is available to put this forward. Now, just before the meeting, I was contacted by the planning board chair, who understands that there are gaps in the BAOD and the CEIOD together, that there was a lot of vagueness and different issues that were challenges during the project hearing for the 104 Turnpike Road. So there are going to be efforts starting in January to try to pull together that gap. And if that process is successful, then this ballot question can be pulled, so it won't appear on the ballot. But until that time, we need to go forward with what appears to be most reasonable in the existing town documents, what has already been described, explained, reasoned out, and by all the boards and committees and and citizen representatives that lent their time and effort and to that end. So that's the purpose for the question, and also to put in there the reference document for the 2011 Housing Production Plan, so that if anybody wants to look that up, they can go back to that document and find it. So that is the whole basis for this particular ballot question.
Okay.
Do you have any questions or concerns or anything that I can help you with?
Anybody have any questions? Go ahead, Laura.
Oh, just, I want to thank you for coming forward with this. I know that when I originally voted in favor of these changes at town meeting, it was never my intention that we were going to start putting these giant housing units in there, and this was really spent a measure to protect the residents and all of that lived around that area. And it's whatever we can do to stop additional projects from coming forward in that density level will be great.
No, thank you. That is part of the whole point.
Okay. Anybody else? If not, I know the chairman of the planning board had a statement he wanted to make, and then
Well, thank you for,
Yeah,
Chris, can I
I'm
ask a
sorry.
question? You said in there that the commercial district dimensions were not stated.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear everything you said.
Sorry, you had said that when you were going through that, the commercial district dimensions were not stated.
Correct.
Was that something they just didn't see? Was it overlooked intentionally?
No. The presentation
Mhm.
through the planning board,
you didn't
through
understand.
the Board of Selectmen and the town meeting only described the multifamily area, Mill, Turnpike, and part of Billerica, as a transitional zone, a buffer zone, in order to protect the existing single-family homes between that and the commercial district. That was all that was said. So the basic plain understanding in transitional is transitional. You go from point A to point B, and it's transitional. It's not a step function.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that the project was presented and went through the public hearing process was under commercial standards, IA standards, not RM standards, or not even multifamily zone standards as described in the 2011 Housing Production Plan.
And this was an IA zoned piece of land.
It's the underlying zone for commercial, and then the CEIOD was placed on top of that. Of course, everything was kind of residential before that anyway, but then came the IA, the CEIOD, and then the BAOD. So the explanation of transitional zone, together with the map that shows the color designation for residential multifamily housing, appeared, oh, well, that makes sense, because two family story home, 2 3-story multifamily structures, more residential than commercial, so not apartment buildings. And then commercial, which goes 4 stories, and for certain areas on Billerica Road now, up to 6. So that is a transition. And so that was the information available at that time as to what we were voting on in order to approve that bylaw. So nothing in any of the 3 presentations that I was at, and I was at all of them, there was nothing stated, not even a breath, that the multifamily areas have to apply the commercial standards. That was not in there at all. So this was a big shock. The 104 Turnpike Road project, 168 units on 9 acres, is a huge shock. It's the biggest project ever submitted for the town. So that's 19 units per acre, and there is absolutely no basis for it whatsoever. None.
And this piece of land is zoned, is under all 3 pieces of the CIOD, CI. CEI.
Yeah, I know, you got an EIEIO,
BAOD
that's
and
how I
the
remember.
IA. Correct, it follows all three, or could? So is that where the confusion is?
The confusion is that there's a lack of specificity in the
But you're proposing
BAOD text.
Yeah.
Okay, but even the use regulation schedule says that there's no residential multifamily housing in the IA. So on the one hand, you have a map that says it's RM. On the other hand, you have the CEIOD saying it's not allowed in the IA, and the existing use regulation also stating it's not allowed in the IA. So my thought in looking at that, when I was reviewing the information for that aspect, was, oh, that's how they're handling it, because it's RM district. And that made perfect sense, again, because the dimensions are transitional.
Right, and your intent is just to codify that, to make it truly transitional.
To codify it, and in addition to that, in order to maintain the more residential setting, is to keep the commercial buildings that are there, which are at 1 and 2 stories, right in that property line with that at the same level. Mm-hmm. Because making that 4 stories would not be transitional. So right now, it is transitional. Okay. So that's the intent, and again, to provide assurance for the residents and for the developers and the whole town, because the residents should not have to fight each and every project with the same issues. There has to be consistency. There has to be agreement on what things are. And these projects should not be left up to the developer to determine scale or density. It's the town of Chelmsford, not the town of developers.
Okay.
So that's the whole point. Chelmsford has to be clear. And again, it would set assurances all the way around and make things a whole lot easier when everybody's playing by the same playbook.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Yep. Okay.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, Board of Selectmen, Mr. Manager, George Zaharoulis, Chairman, Planning Board. Route 129 Business Amenities Overlay District encompasses the industrial district area along Route 129. The BAOD was passed in 2016 at Fall Town Meeting and was accepted by the Attorney General. Planning Board has seen its first project and has completed the public hearing process. The project was a residential project located on a property zoned limited industrial. The Planning Board believes that the non-binding referendum request is a direct result of this project. During the public hearing for this project, the public as well as the Planning Board raised several questions. As you know, the zoning bylaws and overlays are complicated. The bylaws continue to evolve over time. Planning Board intends on reviewing the BAOD and the CEIOD to determine if modifications to either overlay are warranted. The Planning Board is holding off any additional review at this time due to notice of a potential appeal of our decision the residential project was recently approved. The Planning Board has in a work session started to draft instructions and guidance form for the BAOD. This is not part of the bylaw and does not give, it does give some direction to the future applicants and boards. This is only the first step in an ongoing review for the CIOD and BAOD. Several references have been made to the Housing Production Plan. The Housing Production Plan was developed by the Housing Advisory Board, not the Planning Board. The HPP is not part of the zoning bylaw, it's just a reference guide for Planning Board and other committees. Since the implementation of the HPP is in the hands of private developers, it is more of a description of possibilities than of requirements. The non-binding referendum references residential multifamily zone, RM zoning, in a BAOD exclusion zone. This is incorrect. The BAOD is all in the IA district and includes an exclusion zone. The BAOD extends the types of commercial developments that are allowed in the IA district. The expansions allow business amenity projects and residential developments within the IA zone. The exclusion zone does not allow amenity-type projects, but does allow residential developments. This was done to protect residential neighborhoods adjacent to the IA zoning from amenity-type businesses. The exclusion zone's underlying zoning, existing zoning, is limited industrial, which allows for industrial projects to be built based on existing zoning rules and has nothing to do with the BAOD and the CIOD. Now the planning board has seen its first project on the BAOD. The planning board would like to take the time to review the overlay. In addition, the BAOD and the CIOD are complicated, and a non-binding referendum could cause confusion or misinformation. The planning board respectfully asks the maker of the referendum to let the planning board do its job and review the BAOD and the CIOD in a public forum. The planning board will invite the maker of the referendum to submit her concerns to the planning board to help us with our decision-making process. The planning board process will result in quicker results to any changes, additions, or clarifications to the BAOD and the CIOD. The planning board respectfully asks the maker of the referendum to withdraw or postpone the referendum at this time and work with the planning board on this review. So, as stated before by the maker of the referendum, I did reach out to her prior to this meeting and did invite her to meet with myself and my vice chair or another planning board member to discuss her concerns. And as you know, the process to change a bylaw is very simple. Planning board holds a public hearing, and then it goes to town meeting. Town meeting is a 2/3 vote. A non-binding referendum will just maybe muddy the waters or create misconfusion or confusion. So I've reached out to her. Hopefully we'll have a meeting soon and come up with some resolution. Planning board worked very, very hard to try to work and develop things in town. And, you see your first project, you realize that, so we might have missed something, or maybe we missed something. Maybe we didn't miss something. But that's for the board to go back and review and determine. But right now, we have to wait until the appeals process is over so we don't muddy that water. So, thank you for your time. If anyone has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. I promised the chair I would not get into a debate, so I'm not going to debate the maker. So, thank you.
All right, so the reason that this is before us this evening is that a petitioner is, they have the right to submit a petition to have a question on a ballot, a non-binding advisory question on our town ballot. In order to do that, there's one of two ways. She's already taken the first step, and that's getting the required signatures to bring it before us. We can vote to put it on the ballot, in which case it'll be on the ballot in April. Or if we vote not to put it on the ballot, then the petitioner has the option to go and get, I believe it's 10% of the registered voters, signatures of the registered voters in town, in which case it would then be on the ballot. So we have to tell her tonight, because we have to give her enough notice so she can get signatures if that's the way that this board would go. As she mentioned, and as the chair of the planning board mentioned, they will be meeting between now and then. So does anybody have any thoughts about how you'd like to proceed this evening?
Well, she's still.
Oh, go ahead, Laura.
It sounds like that if we were to move forward and to vote to put this on the ballot, that there is already a process in place that it would be retracted if an alternative were worked out through the planning board. And I personally just think that I wouldn't want to hold up this opportunity to bring this very important issue to the foreground. So one way or another, I'd like to be voting on this. I'm hoping it's through a planning board article, but if it isn't, I want to have this opportunity as well.
Well, I have some confusion. There's also a citizen petition article that the same petitioner is submitting as a warrant article for town meeting that town council is reviewing. This is a ballot question.
Right.
If you accept the ballot question, it goes on the ballot. I don't believe you can rescind or withdraw it from the ballot because you've got a petitioned article that's signed not only by the petitioner but other signatories as well. So there is no. So if you accept the question, It goes on the ballot. You can't pull it in February before the ballot is printed.
We couldn't pull it if the
No,
petitioner.
it's not,
If the
don't
petitioner
confuse,
withdrew it
no.
35 days?
No,
we
and speaking to
couldn't.
town council, don't confuse this with the citizen petition town meeting warrant article.
Okay.
This is a ballot initiative. And town council Paul Haverty's direction to me is that a petitioner cannot withdraw the request. Because it's, other people have signed a petition and therefore she speaks as an individual. We don't know, or you can't assume that the petitioner, unlike a town meeting article, can withdraw because what if the others had felt differently or wished, or didn't know, or didn't like this course of action, could have done their own petition. So you have to accept the signatories in the opinion of Paul Haverty. You don't have the ability to withdraw this in the next month. What you have is you have a requirement that if you do not approve the question at least 90 days before the election, remember, the election is April
Right.
3rd, so you really have till January 3rd. If you don't approve this petition, then they have the right to go out and get the signatures. But Paul Haverty's instructions to me were, does not exactly mirror a citizen petition warrant article. This is a ballot question.
Okay.
So,
Just real quickly then, George. Yeah.
Just my clarification is, I told the maker of this article not to pull a warrant for the town meeting. Leave it.
Right, we understand. We're
This is
we're
just
just
this.
talking about the ballot today.
That's what I'm just saying.
Yeah,
Just wanna clarify.
okay.
So,
George, go ahead.
so what you're saying, if she doesn't, she only has till the 3rd?
no, you have until this
Oh, we
January
have until
3rd.
the 3rd.
If you approve it, it goes on the spring election ballot. If you deny the request or do not approve it, then the petitioner and the other signatories have the ability to go out and get 10% of the registered voters on a petition that has to be done 35 days before the town election to then place the question on the ballot.
So if they're gonna have a meeting, and if there's, we don't know if they are or not, it's, the planning board has offered to meet with her and to see if they could square away what their problems are.
Right.
I mean, so if we put this off until.
Right, but remember.
We don't meet
this-
again
this
until
doesn't- The
January
results of any such question do not change the town's zoning bylaw. That's only done by town meeting. So again, don't confuse it with the.
Advisory
Right, it's an
Right.
advisory.
Non-binding.
A non-binding advisory vote. It's not like what happens at the state level, how you had recreational marijuana and other things. That, under Massachusetts.
So if they meet, they clear it all
Laws.
up, this still goes on the ballot if we vote
Exactly.
yes.
If we vote
Exactly.
yes.
It just makes, I agree, I mean, I, being the liaison, I went to the majority of the meetings on this, and I watched the planning board struggle interpreting all three of these different bylaws and the zoning, and I didn't want to be in their shoes. They really struggled with this. And I think the process is, if they did make a mistake, the appeal will sort that out, so I think this just muddies the water a little bit. Like George said, I'd rather just see the warrant go if it's gonna go and not see the ballot question.
Okay, I mean, just if we vote no, doesn't mean that we won't have a ballot question. It just means it makes it harder for the petitioner.
Right, she has to go out and get
Right.
so the petitioner has to go out and get the 10%.
Okay, Glenn, any thoughts?
I kind of agree with Ken. I'd rather see it as a warrant than just go to town meeting. I think we need a vote on it.
Okay, I guess I would agree with that, too. I mean, if we don't have the opportunity to withdraw it, if they do reach an agreement, then I would like to see it be just obviously accept the warrant, citizen petition warrant article, which we have, if they have the 10 signatures, we're gonna do that. So, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
So when you say it's a non-binding ballot question, what does it really mean if it passes?
Nothing.
It's
So,
just gives
but
us
it
advice.
is,
Well,
meant
the
to
town, meant to give
Yeah,
the
it's
town,
meant to
in
give the
town
town
meeting,
advice.
town meeting.
exactly, it is meant for the town to understand what the residents' feeling is over trying to really build up the density of this town or to keep it where it is. And I think right now we're at a critical point. I know that it was a huge issue when I was running 3 years ago that, I'm not happy with the idea of bringing thousands of people into town and dealing with the spin-off of all of that, And so, for me, this is a huge, where is Chelmsford going to be in 20 years? And I'd like to hear from the other residents,
And I agree with what Laura's saying. I think they spoke when the town meeting approved the overlay. I think all they're asking to do is just tighten up the definitions a little bit, because just like the tax law going through Congress right now, everybody's scrambling to interpret it and try to figure loopholes. That's what's happened, is someone looked at it and said, how can I get around the rules? So we just have to tighten it up.
Absolutely.
I think they spoke on whether they want the overlay or not. I just think the question now is, you know, the planning board, that was not, I think your job's harder than mine. So that being said, you know, I think we give them the option to work with Chris Bowman and figure this out. And I think they, again, the town spoke at town meeting for the overlay. We already know they want that.
Absolutely, but I don't think the town meeting has spoken about resident density, which is a completely different question. This is what the issue is today. Do we want 4 to 6 units per acre or 19 units per acre?
But-
And so that's
She's
really
also
the question.
submitting a petition to town meeting for the same thing that would be binding.
So I think it would be up to the presenter to decide which forum she wants to bring this to. And
still has that
versus, I don't
option.
want to be the one to shut her down.
Right, okay.
Well, she has to go to town meeting.
Right.
If you can't just go to the ballot, because it's non-binding advisory, it doesn't get you anywhere. There's no question that to change the zoning bylaw, you need a 2/3 vote at town meeting, and as you said, there'd be a citizen petition article and perhaps, and/or a planning board article. The question is does the placement of this question on the ballot provide any clarity or understanding to the community? That's
My
what
fear
you're
is
deciding,
that,
is
right,
an
my fear
advisory
is that
question.
they do work it out, and it gets settled, and now we still are stuck with the ballot question that's gonna confuse everybody. And I watch social media, I read it every morning, and people see the smallest little tidbit and start making assumptions on what it means, and it turns into a snowball. And I just don't wanna see
What
something.
if the ballot question goes against their agreement that they work out? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, that's a risk that they would probably take, so that would be
mess.
interesting.
It's non-binding, it hasn't,
It's
it's
non-binding,
advisory,
yeah.
right.
It would be my hope that in the next few days, that there could be enough discussion that the presenter of this article could make the decision to pull this ballot. But again, I cannot
Right.
stop
I don't
her.
think there's another.
And I also think that it's just going to fuel the fire, and they're going to be able to get the signatures anyway. So,
Well, if they can get them anyways.
I mean, if they're going to get the signatures anyway, then I guess we're just deciding whether or not this is worth everyone else's time. And I think it's a question that's important.
Well, I guess, I mean, they could hold their signatures, right, until 35 days before, and if they resolve it before 35 days before, just not submit them. So they have an option to pull after tonight, where we really don't, because we don't have another meeting until January 8th, which is past the 90-day.
And I think the
No,
planning,
it's-
you don't have another meeting this year, do you?
January 10th. And
So-
the invitation was for January 10th to the mayor.
Okay, so,
I think there was someone else who wanted to speak.
A political comment.
sure, 2 minutes, please.
Brian Latina, 15 Jesse Road. This is a non-binding question for a town ballot for all of our residents to vote. It's non-binding. It doesn't force the town or the planning board or anybody else to do anything. It doesn't change 168 unit approval of the planning board. What it does is it allows 5 people to let someone petition their government. If you say no to this, the petitioner will have to go out and get a couple thousand signatures, and perhaps, this is confusing stuff. Any one of them, any 10 or 100 of them could get very confused and very upset. And I would guess the first place that the signatures would come from is the area that doesn't even know this building has been approved yet. So my suggestion is, just from a political point of view, and from a town meeting rep's been here for a while, if you just let it go, you vote yes, put it on, it's non-binding. The advice of the planning board's chair is fantastic. They'll go off and they'll solve the problem, perhaps. It's a ballot initiative, just like all the others, and we
Okay, we
vote.
understand, yeah,
Okay?
okay.
Rather than getting the whole town upset about it.
Okay, we
Thank you.
understand, yeah. And since he spoke, I'm going to let that other gentleman also speak. 2 minutes, please.
Less than that.
Okay.
Michael Cooney, Stonegate Road, Chelmsford, Massachusetts. I'm also a board member of the community and represent 62 homeowners that live there. We want the planning board to give us guidelines of number of units per acre. I want to know, should I stay or should I move? We're next to an open area of land that I've seen 3 projects come in on less than 3/4 of an acre land where they put 10 units, 9 units, and now 6 units. Butted up right against, within 20 feet of the property lines. If I know there are guidelines, I want to hear them. It would make it helpful for me to whether we want to go on with this or should I just move out of the place I love right now. Right now, there are no guidelines. Mr. Blinsky said at the meeting, there are no guidelines. They can ask for 20 acres per unit if they want to. There
Okay,
are
well-
no limits. We just want limits. I need to know where we stand.
Well, I would suggest you go to those public hearings that the planning board is going to have then.
I've been at all meetings.
Okay. And one more, gentleman behind you?
Yes, my name is Richard Stander, on 153 Turnpike Road. There's a couple of questions, I guess, have been bothering me. But first, I want to make a comment that this 168-unit development is going to have a severe impact on our neighborhood. I have no question about that. I also feel that it's going to drive the value of our homes downward, not upward. And there is some sort of a transaction taking place at 152 Turnpike Road. That's directly across the street from my house. I have not received any kind of a butters notification or anything. This is just a big mystery, a big question mark every day. With the events of the 104 Turnpike Road, I'm holding my breath every day, wondering what's going to happen to me. That's right across the street. I mean, if you walk from 152 down the driveway, you're going to be standing on my property when you cross the road. So again, I'm left in this state of not knowing my fate, and that's very uncomfortable, very stressful, and I really feel that there should be sufficient guidelines to protect us. I mean, it should be solid. Everybody should play by the same rules. And I agree with the statement that it should not be a developer that comes into town and, shuffles the deck and tells us what to do. I feel that this is a responsibility of our town government. So those are my concerns. But the lingering question is, there is a fund that, as I understood it, was to make funds available to purchase land, to, retain open space in the town. And given this large development of 104, I don't understand why the town would have acted upon that and purchased that parcel of land using this fund. And even if they had to take some loans or something to cover the acquisition cost, I still feel that it would have been a much more favorable resolution to this problem rather than let this progress on the way it has.
Well, quite frankly, I
don't understand why nothing was done in that regard, but I have spoken with Selectman Diggs and Selectman Merrill in the past, I think that they feel that they want to preserve the character of the town. I feel that way as well. My family grew up here. We moved here in, I think it was 1962. Okay. So there's been standards in this town for a long time. I'm nearing retirement now, and I really, really question what I'm hanging on to anymore. I feel betrayed.
Okay, well, that's really not the subject of the discussion this evening, so.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, any more comment, discussion about how to vote on this question this evening? If not, somebody want to make a motion?
Actually, you have 3 questions. You've received 3 petitions.
I thought only the alternate one is the one we're voting on.
You can choose to approve or not approve any of all 3 of them, but you have 3 presented before you because 3 have been submitted by petition. And again, a petitioner doesn't have the ability to withdraw on behalf of other petitioners on a ballot question according to town council.
Right, and in discussions with the town clerk, I wrote a letter to the town clerk, right. And also the December 11th letter should state that the amended petition was on the alternate petition first put in, and that the other one was withdrawn.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that was the intention. Initially, the time was so short, I wanted to cover all the bases as much as possible. Okay. So then with a little more thought, it's like, it should just be one, and that's the one labeled amended
Okay.
petition.
All right, we have it.
Thank you
Tec-
very
but
much.
Technically, you have
Okay,
3 petitions
so-
before you.
Okay, so we can either vote on all 3 of them together, or we could vote on the first 2 that have been unofficially withdrawn by the petitioner, and then vote on the other one.
I think you have to vote separate.
I think so, too.
Do
You
we
could
have?
take, you could take a uniform vote, a consolidated vote
As long
on
as
3,
the
if
vote would be
that's
the
what you
same
wanted to
on
do.
all 3 of them.
Right, it's up to the
I'm
board.
thinking that the vote might not be the same on all 3 of them.
Might not be. Well, it depends on how you make the motion.
Okay, how about if we have a motion to withdraw the first 2?
To not approve.
To not approve the first 2.
I will make a motion to not approve the first 2 citizen petitions that were presented.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
All right, so we have a motion and a second that we probably don't have much discussion for that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and now do we have a motion on the amended?
I will make a motion to approve the amended petition as presented.
Do we have a second? Apparently not. Do we have another motion? Anyone?
I make a motion not to approve the third version.
The amended. Okay, we have a second on that.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. All right, we have a motion not to approve the amended, and it's seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. Okay, next on our agenda is town manager reports.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of brief reports this evening. Once again, we have another petition regarding a Keno license. This one is for the Chelmsford Mart. Again, on these requests, you do not have to take any action, but it's a notification, and again, the board's policy is to notify the community that the Chelmsford Mart at 175 Dalton Road, so one across from the Westland School, is seeking a Keno license for display at the location.
Are they allowed that, are they allowed that close to a facility
Well, they
like
have
that?
lottery, right?
Yeah,
They have lottery now.
They have lottery.
Okay.
Yep.
Well,
Okay. The second one.
Sell cigarettes.
Second matter of my report is just to give a quick update on the Merrimack River stabilization project, over at Williamsburg regarding the sewerage project. And I've sent you the correspondence from the project engineer, and basically the summary of it is that the FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, environmental assessment is soon going to be put out for a 15-day public comment period. Once that is complete, then the Army Corps of Engineers permit can be issued. And then the state is in the process of issuing its water quality certification for the filling aspect of the project. And again, once that's sort of the linchpin at the state level. So just want to update the board, because a lot of people wonder, so much time goes by, is there anything going on out there? And just want to let the community know that locally, we're all set. It's really, it's moving through the state and federal environmental permitting process.
So there was a maintenance plan that was supposed to have been submitted. Has that been completed and
To
submitted?
my understanding, yeah, and then we're hopeful by spring that some of this stuff will get released, and then maybe by
By
the
the
end of
time
the
that
calendar
comes,
year.
it'll only
Exactly.
be worth half the,
Right, and likely would have to, but it is moving forward. I know that there's been, time moves on,
is it deteriorating significantly?
No, I mean, fortunately, in the last, knock on wood, we've not had any significant river rise issues in the last couple of,
Wait till the
years.
spring.
It's the flooding that causes.
Exactly,
erosion.
it's, right, it's the change in the water levels. So I just wanted to bring the board and the community up to
It does
that.
go up and down over there
Right,
considerably.
right.
Do they have any projected time frame on the federal or state permitting process?
I mean, again, I think they're hoping the first quarter of the year that the FEMA, the federal report will be released. And we're hoping that same timeframe, spring timeframe for the state water quality. It's just
So let's say those
painstaking.
both happen in the spring, then
Yeah.
what's the next step?
Then you continue to get additional comment, and then hopefully, I think we're hoping they have some kind of form of procurement by the end of the calendar year. think that's realistic, given the
End of 18.
end of 18.
So they'd start the project.
Probably,
in
you're
19.
probably talking a 19 season.
I know they're holding $1 million, so.
Yeah.
They're waiting for it to wash away.
Well, it
I
must-
think- I
Isn't it
noticed the
2.5
last,
million, Paul?
What's that?
Is the bond, was it 2.5 million? Is it 2.5 million?
Yeah, there's a federal project, and what will happen is if the project will get, they'll do it a estimate, and if need be, we will have to reapply for additional federal funding to supplement the additional costs, because you can see, the inflation factors are just going to be eating into this project from when it was
goes back
first
like 4 years
conceived.
now.
Exactly. And they always build in a factor for permitting, but this has gone beyond that. And then the last thing on my report regarding the 101 Mill Road restrictive covenant, that Paul Haverty has prepared the document that's in your packet this evening. We, at the suggestion of Selectman Lefebvre, we have sent it out to the Historical Commission. This project will be bid, in terms of the sale, after the holidays, and so you probably aren't going to have a due date till the end of February. So this is where it stands at this point. The document is real clear on the restrictive covenant, the facade, and the 1 and 2 family property.
So we had their meeting last week, and they really felt that, because they had watched the meeting and said 2 pages, you guys really vetted out so I said, well, I'll make sure it comes to you for review before we do anything with it, because it was how many pages before?
It was 30 pages.
Down to 2, it's
quite
they're right,
simple.
we probably did
It
gut
might
it.
have been 30 pages, but it read like it was 130 pages.
Yeah, so it's definitely a gutted preservation restriction now.
Well, I just have a couple of questions. I mean, paragraph 3, I guess I don't understand it. The grantor and the grantee agree that this restrictive covenant shall be a covenant running with the land comprising the property. That's okay. This restrictive covenant shall be a burden said property and shall run to the benefit of the abutting property. What does that mean? Any idea?
105 Mill Road.
Are the words left out, or what is it supposed to mean?
Before we have the final vote on it, it's possible to have Paul.
We can bring them, come back in.
Okay.
Yeah, and talk a little bit about it.
And the other thing, as lengthy as the other one was.
Basically, what it's saying is it's putting into context, the value of this property is a benefit to the abutting property owned by the town of Chelmsford. So we own the parcel that
Right.
abuts it, which has been set off from it. But we can have Paul come in he's gonna be coming in at your next meeting anyway for
Right.
another matter.
Yeah.
We can discuss this with Paul at that time.
Okay.
It does look like they're missing the word "on," but
Yeah.
Well, at least, and shall run to the benefit of the, what is, it's a shall be a burden.
well, they're saying the covenant is a burden on this property,
Uh-huh,
and it's a benefit to the land the
Okay.
town owns behind it. Because
okay,
it makes, it does add to the
sure.
land
yeah.
that's behind it. So
Yep.
the town,
So why would
town's
we
winning
tell them,
out.
why would we tell them that?
I don't know what the purpose of that is.
I'm sure there's a legal purpose, because
And the other thing, as onerous as the 30-page restriction was, I thought it was for 30 years, where this one is perpetual. Was that intended?
But I think of 30 years and it was renewable as well, if
Right,
you remember
yeah.
right. But this is the.
You did title this 30 years.
Yeah.
So,
This is the new one, so I just
Right,
just got this, but
right, it does, it says,
in number four,
in number
it's
4, it says
perpetual
perpetual
restriction.
restriction.
So
there
you
you
can,
go. Yeah.
So maybe something else that we can reconsider.
And then he goes on to say if it's not perpetual, it's 20 years.
Well, if it's
Yeah, if it
determined
gets
by a
challenged in court,
court,
yeah.
right, yeah. Okay,
Nowhere does it say 30 years.
right, nowhere does it say 30 years. Okay, so we'll hold off on doing anything with that this evening.
and then the only other thing I'll mention to the board is as I did send out to you last week, we had a resignation from Dr. Kaplan from the Board of Health, and the process to fill that vacancy on an elected board is a joint meeting between the Board of Selectmen and the remaining members of that Board of Health, and we'll try to schedule that for your January 8th meeting as well.
Now, does that
Is
have
it-
to be advertised a certain way?
It does have to be posted, yes.
Okay.
So we will post it and then have his first order of business at your next meeting.
Okay. Okay, is that it?
That's all I have, thank you.
Okay. And we have one set of executive session meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve the executive session meeting minutes of December 4th, 2017.
I'll second the motion.
Not to be released?
Not,
No,
oh, not to be released?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, we are to Selectmen Liaison Reports and Referrals. Glenn, we'll start with you.
Nothing on a meeting, but I think we should mention that the new position for economic development, an offer was made and I believe accepted, and the person will be coming in to meet us.
At your
on
next
our
meeting, yep.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, Laura?
I don't have anything this evening.
All right. Ken?
Sure. So, we talked about the Historic Commission last week at their meeting that had to do with the restriction. I was asked to give an update by the Economic Development Committee. So just where we are year-to-date with them, it looks like the 129 overlay is now a year old. When we started, we had approximately 1.2 million square feet of vacancy, and that was after the departure of Kronos and Mercury. So where we are today, the market seems to starting to respond to the efforts we've been put out there. And it seems like we've got some momentum going on. So to give everybody an update, we've increased rate of tenancy related to small and mid-sized tenants. They have 10 new businesses coming in with approximately occupying 150,000 square feet. These are industries in such as instrumentation, advanced marketing, and biosciences, 3 great industries. We've had 2 successful recent private auctions on where Mercury Computers used to be, and then the 246 Omniway. And it looks like that's going to pull out 320 square feet of 325,000 square feet of vacancies, and the new owners have committed to doing a pretty substantial investment into the properties. DCU, everybody knows about. They purchased a Kronos headquarters that removed 125,000 square feet of vacancies. The multifamily housing, which we spoke of earlier tonight, and some other projects, which seems to be key to this work, live, play environment that we're shooting for. There's about 440 units there, and that represents almost $10 million of investment in building. The first project that's retail related, I think will be announced soon, but it was identified, and there's a developer involved there targeting retail and restaurant. So that to me was probably the most exciting, because I think once we get a restaurant or something that can be a go-to out there, then that will help really crack that open. All of this is looked to be started in the first quarter. You'll hear about in more detail. And the key, I think, stat that I got from Don Van Dyne was that, historically, we usually have around 500,000 square feet of vacancies on 129. With all of this, we get back down to that 500,000 square foot vacancy mark. So my comment to him is we're back to average. Now let's do better than average. And I think there's 3 more buildings that they're sort of working on right now: 300 Billerica, 330 Billerica, and 220 Mill. That seems to be the next, and that's another 400,000 square feet of vacancies. So really exciting. I think that was some great news from them. It looks like the efforts that the town has been pushing out on 129 seems to finally be picking up some traction.
Okay, very good. Anything else?
That's it for me.
Okay, George.
No, I just want to wish everybody a happy holidays, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. So, thank you.
Okay, and I will second that sentiment. I'm wishing everybody happy holidays and a fantastic new year. Our next meeting will be January 8th. And do we have any press questions this evening? Okay, no press questions. Okay, that's all we have for this evening. We have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.